Distinguished members of the media, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome you to First Gate Precinct, home of the Botswana Stock Exchange. But more importantly, allow me to welcome you to the first edition of the Botswana Stock Exchange opening bell ceremony for the 2021 calendar period, which has been appropriately themed, supporting the growth of the financial sector amid the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is KGOTLA, and I'll be directing proceedings of this morning's short agenda. However, before we begin, kindly allow me the honor and the privilege of acknowledging the presence of the following: Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. WILFRED MANDLEBE. Thank you, sir. Botswana Stock Exchange Board Chairperson, Lieutenant General TEBOGO MASIRE. Good morning. Chief Executive Officer of the Botswana Stock Exchange, Mr. THAPELO. BSc Management and Staff. Lastly, let me also acknowledge members of the media who will be viewing the video footage of this morning's ceremony on our platforms later on today. Distinguished guests, speakers, once again, good morning. Good morning. As per protocol, kindly allow me to peruse through this morning's agenda before we begin. Firstly, we shall have the welcome remarks and the 2021 market outlook, which shall be delivered by the Chief Executive Officer of the Botswana Stock Exchange, Mr. THAPELO. From 9:45 to 9:55, we shall have the official remarks delivered by the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. WILFRED MANDLEBE. At 9:55, which will be the official opening of the market, we shall have the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. WILFRED MANDLEBE, joined by the BSc Board Chairperson, Lieutenant General TEBOGO MASIRE, as well as the BSc CEO, Mr. THAPELO, in the official ringing of the bell. Subsequent to that, we shall have the official photo opportunity, which will take place between 9:56 and 10 a.m. this morning. And then lastly, to close off our agenda, we shall have the vote of thanks, which will be delivered by the BSc Board Chairperson, Lieutenant General TEBOGO MASIRE. As we all know, the opening bell ceremony is time sensitive, so at this point in time, kindly allow me the honor of welcoming to the podium the Chief Executive Officer of the Botswana Stock Exchange, THAPELO, to deliver the welcome remarks as well as the 2021 market outlook. Please just give him a short round of applause.
The Permanent Secretary, the Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. WILFRED MANDLEBE, BSc Board Chairperson, Lieutenant General TEBOGO MASIRE, BSc Management and Staff, members of the media, let me take this opportunity to welcome you all to the first edition of the BSc Opening Bell for 2021. As it is practice, the purpose of today's opening bell is to officially open the 2021 market, although it opened in January, and to discuss the 2021 achievements as well as to deliver comprehensive outlook into the new developments in the next 12 months. And given the weak global output that we have been experiencing, falling revenues and widening fiscal deficits, mainly in an effort to contain COVID-19 pandemic, growth in the sub-Saharan Africa is set to register about 3% by 2021. And also, because of heightened risks and increased volatility, the global initial public offering, IPOs and stock exchanges around the world, reached a negative 43% towards the end of the last year, according to the World Federation of Exchanges. And this is relative to the previous year. And therefore, listed companies equally experienced challenges that were brought by the pandemic, particularly on the back of national lockdowns and restrictions in movement. And hence, stock markets, which are usually regarded as a barometer of the economy, were greatly affected. That is why we realized that the domestic company index ended the year at negative 8.2% in 2020. Against this challenging backdrop, the BSE's disposition has been to consistently explore ways of improving the resilience of the domestic capital market. While the year ended without new listings in Botswana, in Nigeria, in Mauritius, in Tanzania, and a lot of other markets around Africa. There have been tremendous activity, especially in the primary equity market, in the fixed income market, in terms of new additional listings. Additional share issuances on the BSE amounted to almost 200 million, both on the domestic and on the foreign board. New bonds issued by corporates reached about 465 million pula, while government raised almost 5 billion through additional tranches of existing bonds. This remarkable level of activity reaffirms the importance of harnessing the power of capital markets to consistently raise capital. We also credit this level of activity to our efforts as the BSE to sensitize the market and issuers as to how companies can utilize the stock exchange during and post-COVID-19 pandemic, which we carried out by way of well-publicized research paper through visual interactions, especially towards the second half of 2020. Similarly, it was also quite pleasing to note that government has also increased bond issuance program from 15 billion to 30 billion, along with increased frequency of auctions. All these positive indications and developments preempt that the capital markets will continue to be active in 2021 despite the backdrop of tough economic environment. We are also proud on various innovations implemented in 2020, such as the new BSE website, the introduction of the mobile applications, and also progress made towards introducing the Central Security Depository System and upgraded automated trading system. This technology development will significantly transform the landscape going forward, and we equally expect that they will contribute materially to the bottom line. For those of you who don't know, the BSE stopped receiving subvention from government in 2018 first half. We now run a profitable entity, which I think is a good thing given the burdens of funds needed from government. The equity market in 2020, ladies and gentlemen, ended the year with a market capitalization of about 412 billion compared to 425 billion in 2019. And this was made out of 79 listed instruments, 33 equities, 43 fixed income, and 3 exchange traded funds. And in terms of trading levels, ladies and gentlemen, trading generally reduced by almost 50%, from 7.3 million pula per day in 2019 to almost 2.8 million pula per day in 2020. And this also was a global trend in some of the markets, especially emerging markets. When you look at the investor profiles, that is, who actually took part in investing in the BSE, you realize that out of almost 700 million pula traded last year, 271 million was traded by foreigners. 244 million pula was foreign companies based outside Botswana investing in our market, and 31 million pula was foreign nationals, that is money coming from outside the country getting into our equity. So that makes about 271 million pula. This is very important because the participation of foreigners in the local market signals the level of development of the market. And you realize that if foreigners traded almost 300 million pula, the local companies and individuals traded almost 400 million pula. and therefore it's actually about 39% of the trades were accounted for by the foreigners. This is what international companies use to gauge the level of development in the emerging market. So to achieve 40% activity by foreigners, I think it's a good thing for us. Normally, during the absence of pandemics, we experience from anything between 35 to 55% of foreign participation in our market. It's good that it's our own Permanent Secretary, Dr. MANDLEBE, coming to officially signal the start of training in 2021. And it's important so because I think the Minister of Finance has supported the BSE for a very long time. And a lot of efforts were made to develop the local capital markets by government. And really, I think when we go outside and tell our story to other international markets participants, how and what government have actually done to develop our market, I think some really find it very unbelievable. And we'll continue to depend on government for support, but at least now, PS, you can rest assured, not financial support. But we very much rely on government for policy direction and policy support for development of the market. And this will range from our lobbying for government to incentivize the companies to list in the stock market, because when these companies ultimately come to the market, I think it's a good thing because they are able to share the wealth that they generate in the national economy with the citizens of this country. I think it's a good thing that we'll still continue lobbying the government to do that. And also the continued support in terms of policies of positioning Botswana as a destination to raise capital. A majority of our companies that are listed here in Botswana do a lot of business actually outside Botswana. They have used the stock market here or the Botswana Stock Exchange as a platform to raise capital, to expand into the region and into the rest of Africa. And I think government is doing well in that regard to create a conducive atmosphere to create these companies to continue to come here in Botswana, raise capital, be headquartered here and expand into the region. We'll also continue to work with government to increase financial inclusion, especially that over the past 5 years, we managed to increase the number of Botswana investing in the BSE from about 23,000 to 96,000, which I think is a tremendous increase. And therefore, this ordinary Botswana or these retail investors are always looking for opportunities in the stock market to invest in. That is why we are very happy that the project we are working on together with Bank of Botswana, with the full support of Minister of Finance and Economic Development, to actually make sure that some government bonds or all government bonds are traded in the stock market. I think it will be a good initiative because this 96,000 investors we managed to raise in a period of 4 years are looking for investment. And I think trading and owning government bonds would be a privilege to an ordinary Botswana who is now owning shares in the stock market. And I think we are progressing well on this project, and I think it will be concluded sometimes this year. And also, the other thing that we are also looking forward to, which I think came in the budget speech, is the privatization of some of the state-owned entities. And we know that I think government will also consider some of them to come to the market. And I think these are some of the many other things that we are working with government to really improve our local capital markets. In 2021, of course, it will still be a challenging year, as 2020 was also a challenging year. But I think as the BSE, we are looking forward to a number of very ripe listings, which we have been working on for some time now. And some of these listings are by AAA institutions, and I think we will list them sometimes this year. We have looked at our regulatory framework, we have revised our member rules, to make it open to admit new brokers. We're in the process of restructuring the security fund to set up a settlement, an investor compensation fund. And also we are in the process of establishing a settlement guarantee fund, because this is also very fundamental to the development of the market. And then we'll just have to fund the fund when it starts so that we secure the proper settlement. Security borrowing and lending, I think we have submitted the rules for approval at NB FIRA. Debt listing rules, we've also submitted to NB FIRA, and we are expecting a response, I think, sometimes this month. On the technology side, which is very important, I think we have already mentioned that the new CSD system will bring with it some of the good characteristics like securities and borrowing and lending, IPO module, and AGM e-voting for especially listed companies. Centralization of trading of bonds in the market to give access to ordinary Botswana. I think we expect that project to be done this year. And also, one thing that we are looking into in this year is a visual simulator for people to trade in the market, simulate the actual investment portfolio so that they get used to that actual trading. We intend to have the annual school competition this year. We missed it last year, but I think we'll revamp it. The mentoring, CPD mentoring program for SME, I think it will still be coming. And also under our CSI program, we have adopted 2 new schools this year. We have been dealing with only one school called Kamwe, which we adopted when the pass rate was about 47%. We had a 3-year relationship with the school. Last year when we ended our relationship, the pass rate had increased to about 87%. And therefore, this year, for the next 3 years, we have decided to adopt Karing Primary School. It's somewhere near the Sigito area in the northwest, and Metsimanchu Primary School. Metsimanchu is somewhere near Nojani, off Charles Hill, in the Hansi district. These are the schools that we are going to be supporting for the next 3 years to help them improve their results. And also, you might also be aware that under the transition bill, staff members of BSE were to acquire 5% shareholding in the BSE, and therefore this process is near completion. I think our good ministry, as well as approved the shareholding, and therefore BSE is going to be owned 5% by employees. This is approved, and we're just dealing with SIPA to implement it. And therefore the government shareholding will reduce from 81.3 to 76.3, and then the rest of the other shareholding will still remain with the brokers. And also I think what is also important to note is that the Botswana Stock Exchange have acquired a plot in CBD, and therefore we'll be building our own head office. The board of BSE, under the stewardship of MASIRE here, I think are fully supportive of the project. We also want to build a building that will be a landmark like in any other big cities around the world. And I think we'll do that within a period of 24 months. And I think I would really like to thank MASIRE and the board for giving us that vision to ultimately own our building, where we can create a landmark building for the city. And we hope that it will be the most beautiful building in CBD. Again, MASIRE. With all that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you for attending today's session, and most importantly, I would like to thank our very own PS Dr. Mandlebe for always supporting the BSE with the ministry, and for gracing today's occasion. And I don't want to keep Mandlebe long here because he's very busy. He took time out of his busy schedule. The budget speech was just read last week, and therefore he deals with a lot of other billions at the government place. With all that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. You're welcome.
Thank you, Retolo, for that comprehensive 2021 market outlook. Distinguished guests, members of the media, please note that the market performance report for the Botswana Stock Exchange from period January 1st up until December 31st, it is available on the BSE website. So some of the statistics that Retolo was delivering in his remarks, you can find them available on the BSE website. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see behind me, the market has been officially opened for trading, but we will commence with our agenda this morning. Next, please join me in inviting to the podium the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. WILFRED MANDLEBE, who shall be delivering the official remarks on today's theme, which is supporting the growth of the financial sector amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Please give him a short round of applause.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. And let me first of all take this opportunity to wish you a New Year, compliments. I know that last year was the most difficult year in Botswana and the world as a whole. And we have to thank God that at least we are still here. And I wish you all safe during this year. Director of Ceremony, BSE Board Chairperson, Lieutenant TEBOGO MASIRE, CEO of BSE, TSHEOLE, BSE Management, our guest, the media, good morning. And it's my pleasure to officiate this first opening bell ceremony for 2021. I'm trying to use technology here, you will forgive me, but this is the in thing now. Ladies and gentlemen, I recall that the BSE opening bell ceremony started in 2018, while globally among stock exchanges, such ceremony dates back to 1900, when a trading of securities happened on physical floors. Since 2018, the opening bell ceremony has become a permanent feature of the Botswana Stock Exchange annual calendar of events. The theme of this year's ceremony is supporting growth of the financial sector amid the COVID-19 pandemic, which I found timely and relevant given what we have been going through as a country since the advent of COVID last year. The environment under which the BSE opening bell ceremony was introduced in 2018 has completely changed, with COVID having been a feature of our lives for almost a year now. The BSE, like many other organizations, has had to adjust. Physical events and meetings have mostly been cancelled, as in many organizations, and have been replaced by virtual events. Fortunately for the BSE, it's a highly technology-driven organization, and key systems such as the automated trading systems and the central security deposits have continued to operate smoothly. Ladies and gentlemen, the financial sector have not been spared by the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, we have had to respond accordingly. In this regard, the ministry, working with key industry players, had to develop a sectoral plan containing measures aimed at ensuring that the financial sector continues to provide services amid restriction of movements aimed at controlling the disease. This was a requirement of the Presidential COVID Task Team. In addition, the financial sector, under the guidance of the Ministry and the Bank of Botswana, developed and implemented a number of initiatives to support the domestic economy from the negative effects of the COVID pandemic. Two of such initiatives which are relevant to the BSE are the Bank of Botswana's decision to allow commercial banks to use bonds listed in the BSE as part of the collateral pool when borrowing. And two, the Bank of Botswana also reduced interest rates to support economic activity, but also to make purchase of shares more attractive given the low interest rate on the bank deposit and money markets. Director of Ceremony, the BSE has played a central role in the development of the financial sector of this country over the past 2 decades. Hence, the development of the domestic security market was not incidental, but rather a result of a deliberate effort by the government in recognition of the importance of BSE in mobilizing finance for development. The demutualization of the BSE in August 2018 also has positioned it to play a significant role in deepening of the capital markets, as the stock exchange serves as a barometer for the economic health of a country. Hence, such stock exchange signals provides, the stock exchange provides right signals for public hearings by both, offerings by both, let me read this one again. Hence, the stock exchange provides right signals for new public offerings by both the domestic and foreign entities. Director of Ceremony, I wish, however, to note that in recent years, there have been a worrying trend of companies delisting, which is the opposite of what we want to do. I therefore expect the BSE to continue monitoring the situation with a view to ensuring that there is a balance between the cost and benefits of listing for companies on the local stock exchange. There are also some areas that need further attention to improve the functioning of the stock exchange. The issue of low liquidity and limited secondary market trading requires our attention. I appreciate that the Botswana Stock Exchange has devoted efforts to outreach in order to improve the awareness and encourage share ownership and trading. However, continued efforts is needed in this area. Another area for improvement is the market efficiency, where there is need to reduce the time taken to settle the share transaction. I note that the Botswana Stock Exchange is quite advanced with regard to the technology and systems. Yet, this is yet another area where there is room for improvement. In particular, there is need for an integrated depository that includes both corporate and government bonds, thereby obviating the need for the Bank of Botswana to maintain a separate depository for government bonds. Furthermore, this integrated depository must be linked to major clearing systems globally, such as the Euroclear, to encourage foreign investors to purchase government bonds. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the problems of the COVID-19 pandemic. The financial sector in Botswana has performed well, as demonstrated by its resilience in this circumstance. The banking sector withstood the COVID shock without experiencing a significant increase in arrears and bad debts, although profits were reduced as provisions were made for potential loan losses. The Botswana Stock Exchange in particular was quick to adapt to new normal in line with its business continuity plan, which ensured that critical functions like trading, clearing, and settlement were done remotely in the event that the team cannot work from the office. Furthermore, the BSE embarked on various initiatives to develop the market by growing the number and diversity of instruments as well as investors. In conclusion, let me reiterate government's commitment to the development of the financial sector in general and the BSE in particular. This is demonstrated by the continuous review of relevant pieces of legislation to promote the stock exchange, as well as the provision of tax incentives to encourage companies to go public and investors to buy listed shares on the stock exchange. The latter include no payment of tax on capital gains, provided the stock or share has been held for more than 12 months, and low tax on dividends as final tax. In this regard, the Ministry remains open to suggestions as to how the regulatory and legal environment can be improved, and look forward to a continued constructive dialogue with the BSE and other institutions involved. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to take this opportunity to recognize and commend the leadership of the BSE, as represented by General MASIRE as the chairperson of the board and TSHEOLE as the CEO, in guiding the development of the domestic stock exchange into one of the well-performing exchanges in emerging market. TSHEOLE indicated what they've been doing, and for a young stock market like ours to have achieved what we have achieved, I think it's something that we have to commend those who are at the helm of this organization. Well done, gentlemen. And with those remarks, I wish to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's please give Dr. MANDLEBE another round of applause. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing us this morning. Just like TSHEOLE did allude to, we know you're a very busy man, so thank you very much for opening up the first installment of the BSE opening bell ceremony. Thank you. Distinguished guests, at this point in time, we shall have the official bell ringing, which will be facilitated by the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. MANDLEBE, as well as the BSE Chairperson and CEO, Mr. THAPELO. 3, 2, 1, ring. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to call upon the PSC Chairperson, Lieutenant General TEBOGO MASIRE, who will be closing off this morning's program by delivering the vote of thanks. Please join in me in welcoming him to the podium by giving a short round of applause.
Thank you, Director of Ceremonies. I would like to take this time to recognize the attendance of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Dr. MANDLEBE, the presence of the CEO, Mr. TSHEOLE, BSE management, members of the media who are both the audience and the reporters this morning, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, and those watching from home. It is my distinct honor and privilege to stand before you this morning to deliver the vote of thanks during the first BSc opening bell ceremony for the 2021 calendar period that has been appropriately themed supporting the growth of the financial sector amid the COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of the BSc and CSD boards, management and staff, allow me to extend my gracious appreciation to the Permanent Secretary, MANDLEBE, for taking time out of his tight schedule to grace this event this morning. More so, as has been mentioned, his budget time, he has to account for the money. P.S. Your ministry and government efforts have played a pivotal role in the growth of our local capital markets since BSc was established back in 1989. During this period, this support has been the driving force behind some significant changes that have propelled the BSc towards being a competitive player in the global capital markets space. Notably, these include the recent demutualization of the BSc in August 2018, the funding of the Central Securities Depository System in 2008, and the automated trading system in 2012, which have positioned the exchange with regional counterparts by offering efficient trading, clearing, and settlement. These developments have brought about the necessary vibrancy and robustness to Botswana's financial markets. In that regard, I wish to thank your ministry for the continued guidance as we meticulously steer our way towards being a world-class securities exchange. As most of you might be aware, the BSc serves as a barometer of economic health in Botswana, as financial capital is the lifeblood of all businesses, big and small. Access to capital in Botswana remains a challenge, and this has constrained many enterprises in pursuing their strategic objectives to grow and contribute towards Botswana's economy. It is with this in mind that we emphasize the role that the BSc plays and how we act as an avenue for companies to raise capital for development. In the context of Botswana, the BSc performs a crucial function of facilitating the formation, allocation, and mobilization of capital. We address the needs of issuers seeking finance at reasonable cost and of investors willing to provide the finance according to their perception of risk and return. By so doing, we provide an opportunity for long-term funding at the point of issuing the securities for the first time and at any other point henceforth. With the pandemic having crippled many sectors across the country, the time has come for businesses to cushion the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 by utilizing the BSc as a viable option to remain solvent by strategically accessing the capital markets to raise debt and or equity capital. This will ensure that companies are well positioned to curb the negative impact of the pandemic, such as reduced earnings and increased cost of operations from business disruption. As such, we will continue with our efforts to sensitize and educate the business community about the various methods and ways in which capital can be raised on the stock exchange as opposed to other traditional forms of accessing capital. Let's look at SEDA, NTB for the time being. These methods are diverse in nature and applicable to both listed entities and entities willing to list. They serve various strategic purposes over and above raising capital and can be very important in expanding the pace of recovery for individual businesses past the COVID pandemic. We look forward to more continued support from the government and stakeholders at large as we navigate this pandemic and beyond. We look forward to a regulatory environment and initiatives that support the growth of the capital markets. We can only succeed in our mandate if we work together as one for a common goal. Government alone cannot drive the capital markets. As such, allow me to also take this opportunity to acknowledge the contribution of the private sector participants for their resilience during the past difficult 12 months. Director of Ceremonies, I will be remiss if I fail to recognize the presence of the media fraternity here today. Your continued support in availing coverage and visibility for the exchange is highly appreciated. And the fact that you have braved the coronavirus to come here this morning despite the warnings of staying at home does exemplify your position as frontline workers. And let me applaud and acknowledge the stewardship of the BSE board, the CEO and his staff for keeping the ship afloat during these trying times. You have worked extremely hard in creating a conducive environment for all under very difficult times. Continue to work this hard. Yes, as you have already been told, we have excelled. We are one of the very few state-owned enterprises that have managed to wiggle themselves out of support government to be totally independent and profit-making. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for honoring us with your presence this morning, and enjoy the rest of your day. Beat Corona, mask, sanitize, and keep the distance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant, for those warm, gracious remarks. Please give him another round of applause. Distinguished guests, we've come to the end of our program. Firstly, I'd like to thank you very much for being with us this morning. Just like the chairman did allude to, these of course are trying times, and your support does not go unnoticed. We do thank you as the Botswana Stock Exchange for your continued coverage of BSE events, and of course the important role that you play in regards to information dissemination. So thank you very much for being with us this morning. At this point in time, I would like to avail an opportunity for our distinguished guest to please disembark and then have their morning tea. And then the rest of us, we can network. There's some refreshments outside as well as some snacks. So PS, Chairperson, thank you very much.